Yeah, yeah, it's wrong. All right, welcome everyone. It is June 25th, 2024. This is our 9 a.m. board briefing. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners French and Kearns are in the conference room. Commissioners Cuney and Jordan are traveling on county business, and Commissioner Waldron is not with us yet. So we will lead off today with a presentation from Dr. Veena Singh, our medical examiner, a briefing on the Randox test kits. So take it away.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to brief you on our request to purchase Randox test kits. And these are kits for use in the Randox Multistat Analyzer. And this is a tabletop machine that we acquired just a little over a year ago using federal grant money. It analyzes a small amount of blood to detect common drugs of abuse. And using this machine, we can determine basically in real time, at the time of autopsy, whether drugs were involved in a death, and if so, which drugs were involved. Previously, before we got this machine, if we had a case in which drugs might have played a role in the death, we had either to submit specimens to the state toxicology lab, in which case we would have to wait anywhere from 4 to 12 months for a result, or we could submit specimens to a private lab and pay a budget-busting sum to get results more quickly. So to maintain our office accreditation, we are required to close out 90% of our cases within 90 days. So waiting 120 to 360 plus days for tox results would quickly put us out of compliance. But on the other hand, we have roughly 900 cases per year in which one of the questions is, did drugs play a role in this death? And so spending $200,000+ on private lab testing every year just wasn't and is not sustainable. So these Randox test kits will do allow us to screen cases to determine, number one, do we even need to take jurisdiction of the case? Number two, if we do take jurisdiction, does the case need a full autopsy? And if we do a full autopsy, it allows us to determine what type of laboratory testing is needed. And the test kits are calibrated so that they detect drugs only at significant levels. So in the context of other real-time testing that we do at the autopsy, and of course the autopsy findings, in certain cases we can finalize the death certificate the same day or the same week, and that provides answers to families and information to law enforcement and public health officials in a much more timely manner than we could previously do. So we've now been using this Randox system, the machine and the test kits for a full year last year. And the results of our experiment with this system have been pretty amazing, actually. So last year in 2023, we decreased our average turnaround time in toxicology cases from 8 months to about 1 month. And in that same year, we spent about $10,000 on the test kits, and that saved us between $150,000 to $200,000 on outside toxicology testing. The Randox machine uses these unique proprietary test kits, and Randox is the only supplier of the machine and the kits. They don't use secondary distributors, so you have to get the equipment and the kits directly from them. And so to sum up, that's why I'm here requesting that we be allowed to purchase these from Randox under a sole source declaration for the kits.
Any questions? All right. Thank you. Sounds good.
That was quick and easy. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up, we are joined by Anthony Anderman.
Morning. I get an opportunity to give a presentation on our opportunity to apply for a $1 million grant through BGA, Department of Justice.
Come on up to the
Sure.
we can get you on the camera there,
Got it.
so all our viewers at home can see you.
Hopefully they get the right side.
All right, so yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I get the opportunity to apply for a Bureau of Justice grant. This opportunity is for our body-worn cameras. Our country currently right now provides over $100 million of training through criminal justice or law enforcement agencies with little to zero research around that opportunity to see if that's effective. Well, you guys invested a lot of money in that training center out there. So the opportunity gets brought to us with this body-worn camera grant to actually evaluate if our training is effective. The grant will partner with two other companies, actually, National Policing Institute and Polo Solutions. Polo Solutions has a software called TrustStat, and it's AI driven. I had an opportunity to work with co-founders in DARPA, which that research is brought over to the AI system, which will measure the deputies' behavior and also the contact behavior to see if what they're doing is effective through the training that we provide on de-escalation, use of force. De-escalation meaning, can we decrease the use of force? So this is going to be a 3-year project. They'll do all the research. We do the management of the training through the training center and through the sheriff's office. So really, there's nothing going outwards, meaning we're not going to bring on any other positions. We'll maintain Steve Barbieri, because right now I believe Steve Barbieri's position is going to be up. The funding coming in from the state will be up in November. We'll go ahead and continue his position for another 3 years to help manage that project. The other 2 members of it.
Any questions? Great. Great deal.
Yep. Hopefully we'll get some good data and we'll see where we can intervene and improve our training, or say our training is effective and bring them further.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have Aiden Fritz from our HCD Community Development Manager, and you're going to be talking about CDBG capital contracts with Spokane County. Take it away.
Morning, everyone. I'm joined here today with George Dahl, who's the director of the HCD department. I just wanted to briefly go over some of our capital grants. I believe there's a presentation that should be loading up here to assist with the information. All right, so we can just go right into the next slide here. I apologize if the text is a little small. We'll make sure to make it bigger for next time. But just kind of as a funding overview, so Spokane County was awarded about $1.7 million through the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG program. That is money that is provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have a set amount for HCD admin that was set aside, and also about $250,000 that was awarded to public services. That was briefed about a week or two ago, I believe, for some of those public service projects. We're looking about the remaining $1.1 million that's specific to capital projects. We funded primarily 4 capital projects during our RFP cycle, which will be for the 2024 program period of performance, which is the 7/1/2024 to the 6/30/2025. I want to make note that the capital projects also have an 18-month period of performance, so that will actually extend to December 31st of 2025.
So is that dollar amount, I'm going from memory, but isn't that less than what we got last year? The 1.7 million?
Just a little more. Yeah,
A little bit more than what we got?
something.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there's usually a plus or minus of around 80,000.
For some reason, I wanted to think that we were just almost just under 2 million. But we're not there yet. Okay.
Yeah, there's some program income that comes into play, and then prior year we have resources that weren't expended, but that's the base grant amount.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Next slide, please. So as per the HCD, they recommended 4 capital projects to be funded. Those projects themselves were then approved by the commissioners. And so we are just kind of going over a briefing today of what those projects are. We will be coming back at a later time for a legislative meeting to execute those contracts for signature. For those specific capital projects, I wanted to just kind of briefly go over them. They are the Spokane Neighborhood Action Partners, or SNAP, Minor Home Repair Program, the Habitat for Humanity Acquisition Project, which is going to be for affordable housing, and then the town of Fairfield and the town of Spangle are doing water and sewer infrastructure projects. You can see the dollar amounts allocated to each one of those projects on the slide there. Next slide, please. So for the recommendation that we're going to bring to the legislative meeting is to approve those subrecipient agreements as proposed during the legislative session. Those are all the contracts that we have currently drafted, and we are sending them out for review and then later for signature to all of our subrecipients. We will be bringing those contracts to be approved and then get the commissioner's signatures. Next slide, please. And then we also wanted to make note that we did have an additional capital project as we were doing our kind of clearinghouse of administrative duties. We had found that we could allocate additional resources for the final project during our RFP cycle, which was a roof replacement for an affordable housing project out in Medical Lake. That project is Spokane Housing Ventures, which has now become Catholic Charities. They are replacing a roof for about $123,000, which serves approximately 6 beneficiaries that are below 80% AMI. So for that project, it is not going to be involved in here because they're going to be using funds from the 2023 program year. What that means is that we're going to have a 30-day public comment period, which is currently ongoing and will end July 15th. After the 15th, we will then bring that contract for briefing and then the legislative session to be signed for signature. We just wanted to kind of keep you in the loop that that will be kind of coming down the pipe in the future.
So Commissioner Brent, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just confirming that second bullet point, that should be roof and not rood.
Correct. That's a misspelling on my part.
But I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
That's a good catch though.
It's correct. It's a new thing.
New thing, yeah.
So was this Medical Lake Apartments in another? Did they apply for funding through a different pot of money as well? Wasn't there something in Medical Lake that was applying for maybe some of the affordable housing dollars? It's not the same project though.
It may have been part of an ARPA ask. I don't know. This did come through in our request for proposal that we did earlier this year.
Okay.
It was just it was a project that was not selected for funding because we had run out of the capital resources.
Right. Okay.
So we had
Good. I'm glad you were able to find funding.
Yeah, we were able to unencumber some funds remaining off of a few other projects. So that's the prior year resources. So so we figured that since we had an existing need, and we already had a request for proposal application submitted to us. If it was found by the advisory committee to proceed, then we want to make sure and bring that to y'all for consideration as well.
So because it wasn't in last year's action plan, you just have to go through this process of having a comment period on it.
Yeah, it's part of the amendment process. So we'll load it into last year's plan or the year that's just ending here this week. We'll load that in and we'll fund it with those prior year funds. So it's more of a formality process that we have to do with the HUD funds.
And what is the time frame now that HUD lets you keep the CDBG dollars? I remember that back in the day at the city, we could keep them for a while and then they kept kind of shrinking down. You could only have them for so many years. If you didn't use them, you lose them.
Yeah, it has more to do. It's a catch-22 with the HUD funds or with CDBG in particular, where you have up to 6 years to spend those, but you have a timeliness test every year that says that on May 2nd, you can't have more than 1.5 times your most recent allocation. So if you sit on the funds, then you end up getting in trouble. At the city, it's unique because they bring in so much program income off of their rehab program that they're constantly in a challenged position of spending those dollars down. We don't have the same kind of revenue coming in off of those loans with our CDBG portfolio here.
Thank you.
Next slide, I believe, is just for any other questions. So
Any other questions?
there are none.
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we are joined by Rose Noble, the president and CEO of Visit Spokane.
Oh, look at that. You know, I'm having one of those days, so sorry about that. I brought these because I wasn't sure if it's gonna show big on the screen or not, so I thought I could lay them out for you to have. And then you can have them in your office and be proud of them because they're really great report.
Fantastic.
So good morning. Thank you for having me. Commissioner Kearns, who sits on our board of directors, had asked if I could come and kind of give an update on the most recent tourism impact numbers, which we were happy and proud to announce publicly at our May event. Thank you, Commissioner Kearns and Ron, for attending. That was great. One thing that we wanted to do a little bit better next year is we were able to get a proclamation from Lisa Brown this year, and we would love to talk to the commissioners about getting a proclamation for National Tourism and Travel Week, as well as shouting out our numbers on the county level. So quickly, I'll just kind of go through this. There's a lot of numbers here for you to dive into, and this is actually only partial of the report. We have the full report if you'd like me to send, if you want some light reading tonight, just to go through some data. We work with Tourism Economics, which is the global leader in research and data collection for this type of report. So we're happy to work with them. Visit Spokane contracts directly with them. The state of Washington also has a statewide economic impact, and we do make sure that those numbers are reflective, right? So we're not getting different numbers from the state. On the rack card here, this is really the big ones that we like to talk about in the community. They're a little bit more easier to understand. We had $1.48 billion, it's actually 1.485 or something like that, $1 billion spent in our county by visitors, which is great. That's an increase over last year. We were just under 1.4 billion. So we're excited to see that cross the 1.5 next year. Total economic impact would be 2.28 billion, and that is indirect and direct. State and local taxes that this generated off of visitor spending was $227 million. And that also provided household tax relief for everyone in the county at just over $1,000, so $1,065, which is why it's so important for us to be able to have those outside zip codes come and spending in our area. In addition, it supported just under 18,000 jobs, including myself. But a lot of our hoteliers, restaurants, and attractions are supported through visitor spending. And that creates just over 650 million in labor income. So those are numbers we do not want to see go away. And we're very happy to have a good working relationship with the county and their support through lodging tax, as well as our work and efforts with the beloved Jim Amacio on the TPA Commission, who has been super helpful to me in learning and going through that process. We do have a TPA Commission meeting coming up in July where we are going to be talking about creating a more robust process for application as well as spending and reporting. And we will be doing a ROI, return on our investment, from the last time we met, which was in November, through current year to date, so that the TPA Commission can have something that a little bit more meaty to bite into in terms of how we're spending. Just a couple numbers about Visit Spokane. We do share tax dollars, lodging tax dollars, with Spokane Sports. One of the differences with Visit Spokane is that when we talk about room nights, those are contracted definite room nights that we can show on paper with ink that they have been secured. And of course, nobody wants room nights or heads and beds more than Visit Spokane, because they do fund us, but they also fund all of the promotional efforts that we do. So we're happy to announce that in Q2 of this year, up to today, we have just over 20,000 definite room nights that we've secured in 2024 for future years. And we have two, not one, but two groups of 7,000 room nights that are in the pipeline. So we should be getting right over 30,000 room nights within the next few weeks here. So if you ever want any more information on how we secure room nights and when we work with conventions and what that involves, I'm happy to detail that for you. This report kind of breaks down more so the spending of when those visitors are in town, food and beverage, attractions. It shows you kind of how they are spending and where they're at. And then on the last page, we have this little community vitality wheel, which is something that Destinations International, which is the global association for our industry, and I happen to sit on the board of directors for. This is a new kind of mechanism for us in our community engagement. It essentially is saying it starts with a visit. So we know that there's so many people that visit our community and fall in love with it because it's so amazing. Like, how could you not? And they end up becoming a homeowner, right? So in order to do that, we have to invest in infrastructure. There has to be jobs. We have to provide a full circle, amenities for them to be able to move from the Midwest like me over to Spokane. So that's kind of part of the work we do. That was a really super high overview of this report, but you've had it with you for a few days, and it's available as well on our website, or if you want a deep dive. Any questions on the report?
Any questions?
Well, thanks for all the work you're doing, and I love the new look.
Yep, new brand, new logo.
brand. It's fun. What, how is Spokane positioned with the conventions and the, coming out of the pandemic? It's,
Mhm.
it's good to see these numbers going like higher than
Yeah.
pre-pandemic in terms of retail and lodging and all the spend.
Yeah.
How are we competing against, other communities with, for those larger group events?
We have some challenges still. One thing that post-COVID we're seeing is group size is smaller. So we are having to bring in more groups to get that number. Us being located in the upper northwest corner of the states, with not as many direct flights, it does make it harder for some people to, it's not hard, it's super easy, but people complain about having a non-direct flight. So we have a lot of campaigns directed to all of our direct flight cities as well as our secondary stops. So convincing people that a layover in Denver is not as bad as you think sometimes. But that you can make a connector. In terms of like numbers wise, how we're comparing to 2019 with like our room nights. Well, our average room size is about 71% of 2019. So that kind of shows you. Compared to 2023, we're actually over. So we are increasing. We're seeing that group size go up. In terms of like our lead room nights, we're 57% of 2019, but there was an anomaly because we had a Fairchild event that brought in a massive amount of people, and I would love to have that again. But probably a more accurate number to track would be 2022, which we are beating at 129%. So comparison to our competitive sets, we look at cities that have 4 seasons, similar airport size, similar population size, outdoor amenities. We are faring very well with them in terms of being able to bring in groups. Where we are seeing where we have room for growth is the amount we can invest in some marketing and promotions to go beyond the 3 to 4 years that we're securing groups. And part of that is due to state budget. Washington State doesn't have a tourism budget. Happen to sit on that board as well, and we're working on that. So there'll be update for you soon as we present some ideas. The state of Oregon, they have a state budget of 53 million, and those dollars dispersed to regional bureaus. So we would love Washington to get more funding. But we also do have a unique funding system here in the county where we have split lodging tax, and then we have a TPA that's also separated in a unique way. So we're working on making sure that any efforts that we have are collaborative with our partners at Spokane Sports as much as they can be. And then we're trying to leverage public facilities district to the best of our advantage. So we're working on it, I guess. But there's room for growth. We're not at 2019 numbers. We are doing well compared to our comp sets. We could be doing better if we have a little bit more funding on the plate, which is the story that everybody that sits in this chair comes and tells you. But I love to.
First one this year that's.
Okay, good. But for every dollar that we invest in tourism and marketing promotion, there's $9 generated back into our county. And Visit Spokane has really upped their engagement efforts to make sure people are understanding what we do and the value that we bring. And that's going well. We're talking with some strategic partners outside of our hospitality industry, like the medical field, the education field, to work on, to provide them some of the efforts that we can do, such as relocation. We produced a relocation guide, and we're speaking with a couple of the medical providers on creating a digital orientation packet for them when they are recruiting to bring people into town, and then looping in some of our leadership people, including like a site tour of our community for their top level executives that they're trying to recruit to town. So those are services that we can provide as well. And then we can have a partnership fee as well on that to try to increase some revenue. So we know we can't just come to you all for dollars. We're trying to look for other ways to increase that.
Any other questions?
So from a tourism standpoint, how do we compare with, let's say, Boise, which is a lakeside city?
Yeah, Boise is interesting. They have, you have to play in the public safety issue, you know, with certain things when you're talking about visitors and wanting to be in a space that they feel welcome and safe. Spokane does a good job. We have some of those social concern issues. I know you all know, I'm not gonna get into details. But Boise is actually super well funded through state programming. So the state of Idaho has significant dollars that they are dispersing to regional bureaus. So we cannot compete with that, but we crush them on the convention side because we have a better downtown amenities with access to restaurants, attractions, all of those, as well as our space. We have a larger footprint in space for actual group and meeting size. So they're interesting. We get compared to them a lot, but it's not really a total comp set because of some of the differences in the state.
Yeah, well, and you made a comment, I just want to expand on it. Boise also has fewer airlines servicing them, and they don't have nearly as many direct flights from across the country as we
Correct.
do and stuff. We got Charleston, we got Atlanta, we got Dallas, we got, Boise doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
And stuff, so it's not just flights, it's how you're marketing the flights and the markets that
Yes.
you're trying to reach into. So just want to put that out there.
And we actually, we've been working with, there was prior to my arrival, I don't know, there was some relationship hiccups, bumps in the road with the airport, but we've been working really well with the airport in the last year, and we're actually working on a regional campaign with the airport and Coeur d'Alene, where they've both put in some dollars in addition to our dollars, so we're leveraging our budget. And we are having direct conversations with Todd and Larry on access, you know, promoting and putting ads in those areas where we are sending direct flights. And I'm not only super impressed with both Larry and Todd, but very grateful for us to have the operations and leadership that we have in our airport and what we're doing in terms of growth. So I'm optimistic about that relationship continuing to build.
I'm glad you're aware of the tension that existed with previous leadership, because
Sure.
it's like every time they couldn't meet a goal, they blamed it on the airport.
Yeah, it's definitely not the airport.
So, you know, the one number that you've got in here that, you know, I'd like to encourage you to scream from the rooftops is that $1,065 per household in tax relief. I mean, there are a number of programs that we have that are based upon sales tax revenue. And in fact, even the Measure 1, you know, that would have, the tourism would have raised $3 million toward Measure 1 every year and stuff. So that's a strong number. And I think more people need to be aware
Mhm.
of the value that tourism provides to the region and stuff. So keep it up.
Yeah, thank you. We'll
Alrighty.
get that out there. Josh and Ron are gonna help us shout it from the rooftops as well.
Whatever you need, just let us know.
Okay,
All right, any additional questions?
awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for next year, for the tourism week, for the proclamation.
Yes,
Yeah.
You wanna just make sure Martha Lou has your contact info?
yes, I would love to.
Or you have hers, and make sure we get that taken care of.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Chris Dorches. Chris, oh, right here. All right. All right, Chris is gonna talk to us about Washington Department of Veterans Affairs Contract 305E 18053, Amendment 5.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Take it
So,
away.
This is just an extension to the current contract for EBCMF, which is the Enterprise Veteran Case Management System. Our partnership with the Washington State Department of Veteran Affairs allows us programs, state programs and tools. And one of those tools being this case management system that we utilize in order to serve our veterans and manage their cases for the state.
Okay. Any questions? All right.
Good to see you.
Right,
Nice to see you.
straight to the point.
So much.
And he didn't ask for any money.
No, I did not.
Yeah. Okay, Chief Don Hooper, Detention Services.
Well, good morning. Just asking for just a little bit of money,
Oh,
just a very little bit.
There's always one.
For me, it's on the small side. So, first one is 2 agreements we want to make with, Washington State Criminal Justice Training Center. I believe the sheriff's office was here either last week or the week before. One of their deputies is going to be a TAC officer for CJTC on the law enforcement side. We've been offered 2 positions, one for our sergeant and one for one of our officers to be a TAC instructor as well as the assistant commander of the academy. Just for history, for years, we've only had Burien as an academy over by CTAC, and it is a roadblock to recruiting. A lot of times we get people that don't want to go to the academy for 10 weeks over on the other side of the state. And so we have had numerous people reject the position because of that. So getting the academy over here is a good thing for us. And us being the biggest agency on this side of the state, we knew we needed to contribute. But the upside is they reimburse our officers for full salary and benefits. So no cost to the county at all for the sergeant and the officers. So it's a good thing all around. I think it'll help us with recruiting as well as have input in the curriculum of the academy. So Chris has looked at the contracts as well as risk management. So
can I ask, where's the exact location of the academy here?
it's going to be at the sheriff's office
It
training
is
center.
gonna be
So
at the
they're-
sheriff.
yeah,
All of
they're-
them.
So they're
100% of the academy will be there.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Right.
It's been years, probably 10 years. Done corrections academies at Spokane Police Academy,
Mhm.
but we haven't done it for a long time.
Okay.
So. But it's a good thing. No downside as far as I can tell.
What kind of commitment for our correction officers?
They're 1-year contracts and they believe it's gonna be up to 3, so 2 will be back here maybe 2 other times each year. So.
But during the year, how much time do you foresee them dedicating to the training?
Oh, full-time.
Full time.
Yep, full-time for the whole, they will be reassigned there.
And it's 2 of them, 2 positions?
Yeah, 1 sergeant, 1 officer. But I think in the long run, well, here's another point for, I guess, a little bit of history. Right now, we're 15 officers behind on getting them to the academy. So that in years past, they would get within the first 6 months. Now we're 18 months out on getting them to the academy to be fully certified. So with the academy schedule over here and the other thing, will be guaranteed 5 positions in every academy by them contributing. Will be up to date in January of this year. So even though it does put us 2 officers farther behind, I think it more than pays for itself and getting people online that much faster. So.
All right. Any other questions?
Good news.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a good thing. Very happy they were offering a position. So it's good for them too. So next one.
Got you up for another.
Okay, yeah, next one is Deer Park contract. We use the airport out of Deer Park for EVOC and EVAP training for new officers. And so it's we've been doing it for probably 10 years, about $150 a day. It's a total of probably, we asked about $3,000 for the whole year for the contract. Same thing's been through legal and risk. So.
And I think it will shift out to the training center eventually once the track is out there.
Yeah, that may be the case, but God, I'm not sure, Mike.
Okay, I think that's the goal. To get them done.
But another pretty easy one, so.
Okay.
Questions?
Done?
Okay, well, thank you. That was very easy, so.
Okay, we are way ahead of schedule.
I'm glad I could help.
Yeah. I assume Doug is not with us yet. Might be. Or Arian, she's out there.
Other area.
Not yet. Okay. Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, if anyone's got miscellaneous, you lucked out.
I lucked
You
out.
lucked out, Randy.
Randy's just waiting back there.
Please let me.
I was gonna have Gil over here, but we'll just.
Okay, well, you're after Randy.
What we have is we need to do some repairs to the courthouse. And so what Gil is putting together is a grant application. And it is a competitive grant. And so what we would like to do is have the board.
Is this the grant that's due next week?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So that's why it kind of came up miscellaneous on us real quick. So this is a letter of support we're asking the board to sign today. Since it is competitive, we are suggesting that we go for a 50% match. We currently have, by year end, we'll have about $600,000 in our historical preservation fund. And so this would take $500,000 of that.
Okay.
So any questions?
This one, you want a motion and a signature today?
Yep.
All right.
Could I offer support? This, Randy mentioned it's a competitive grant.
I think you've got the votes, Scott. Do you want to risk it?
Do you really want to?
Giving a little more information as to the.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Between us and the yes vote, so yeah, go ahead, sure.
The
The camera's in.
competitive nature is such that it requires a minimum of 25%. But of course, if you put more in, it's gonna be more competitive. Because we have the funds sitting in the account, that's why Randy's suggesting and Gil's suggesting we go all the way up to 50%.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the drafting and signing of a letter other than an open public meeting to support a grant request for the historical repair grant for 2025 to 2027 as presented this morning by Mr. Bischoff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll open this up for public comment. If there's anybody with us on Zoom or in the room that would like to provide comment on this motion, on this letter being drafted. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function or press *9 if you're joining us by phone. Second call. Third and final call for anybody wishing to testify on this motion. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. We will get this signed. We have a copy here. Okay, Jeff, take it away.
Jim and Macy will be here in a moment to join. I just saw him walk across the street. Okay. So I wanted to talk about our federal consulting group. As most of you know, the Moan Consulting Group has been our federal lobbyist for the past few months. Their firm has gone through a split. John Colton, who has been the person with our account, is leading a new firm. Having talked with legal department on options and getting feedback from the commissioners, you will find on this afternoon's 2 p.m. consent agenda two documents. One is a resolution implementing the 30-day termination for no cause. There's not been any issues here. It's just the firm split. You have to pick one side or the other to continue with. And then the other would be an actual letter that would go out later today or tomorrow to Des Moines, notifying them of our intent to terminate that agreement. We have written the document. It actually says July blank for the date that you filled in, the way it went in, unless I change that to 31st before I send it to Gina. I'll have to double check. But our thought was to go through the end of July, might be a few extra days, but given the situation, I didn't think worth quabbling over pennies. So they would be paid, Des Moines would be paid for the month of July. We have not yet done an agreement to continue a relationship with Mr. Colton's new firm. I'm gonna let Jim talk about the legal, reasonable, prudent. He thinks we can just do that without opening the RFP.
Well, as the board is aware, there's no state statute that sets forth the process that a county has to go through to hire a consultant, except for architects and engineers. The county, however, has a policy which is in the county code. The county code provides that all county departments are required to go through a selection process to hire consultants. However, the policy also includes language that says it's not required for any county department to go through that policy if it's, quote, reasonable and prudent, end of quote, not to have to go through the policy. In previous circumstances where the county commissioners have hired a consultant to provide certain services, and in previous occasions, we have not gone through a selection process to renew or continue that progress. For instance, Mr. Cogan is a consultant. We didn't go through a selection process for Mr. Cogan because we've used him previously, and it's reasonable and prudent not to go through it under those circumstances. So what I've suggested to Jeff McMorris is that there's no legal obligation for the board to go through a formal selection process to hire Mr. Colton to continue to provide, if you will, consulting services unless the board wants to. And so I prepared a resolution which basically says the board is going to execute a contract at other than an open meeting with Mr. Colton's new firm. And we're not going to go through the selection process because it's reasonable and prudent not to have to go through it. You've used him before. My understanding is we feel very comfortable with his services. Any questions from any of the board members on moving in that direction? Sounds good.
So today would be just the termination of the agreement side with the firm. And then on July 9th, we would, I think we wanted to go straight to the 2 p.m. with Colton. I was originally thinking on July 9th, we would brief here and then put it for the following week. If you guys want to consider this a briefing, we could have a new agreement prepared probably by the 9th, the next meeting, to start with Colton, effective in our mind August 1st with the other agreement. So it's just your preference. I have had conversations with the other 2 commissioners who are not at the table today. And I think all 5 seem to be in the same place here.
I'm fine with your timeline. Commissioner French?
Yeah, just sooner the better. So from my standpoint, you know, if we can brief it and do it, you know, the first week when we get back after 4th of July, that'd be great. I mean, you know, I've got several projects I'm working on with him, and so it'd be nice to not have a hiccup. We can avoid it.
Mr. Walter?
So the proposal would be. So then we wouldn't sign the new contract till we voted on that. So you're thinking the 9th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to make that one effective, whatever date we get it on the schedule? Do a prorated first month?
Seems fine. Yeah.
Scott?
Well, I would just say, we're paying the current group through the
current
end
one
of July, right?
Through July, we have a 30-day.
Oh, okay.
So we do have a 30-day agreement, so we are paying them through July and have them on the payroll for our contract, which is why we were thinking August 1 for a start
Oh, I see.
date.
Okay.
Having talked a bit with Mr. Colton, I think he would entertain your phone calls prior to August 1st, understanding the dynamics of the situation.
So we'd be kind of paying 2 different consultants for the month of July, or at least 3 weeks of July.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Colton's fine with them August 1st. Knowing we would. But it's obviously your decision.
I mean, even if we were paying both of them for the month of August, it's de minimis in terms of dollar amount. I mean, if John's willing to take calls during August, that's fine. It's just some of, July. But,
When I talked with him, he said he felt very comfortable with
okay,
that.
all right,
If the board had already taken an action and he could see the plan was in
Yeah.
place, he was
Yeah.
very comfortable with it.
okay,
Payment side, and he'd be happy to kind of continue like none of this happened.
Yeah.
As far as workflow goes.
The document on this afternoon's agenda, board members, it authorizes the chair or a majority of the board to terminate the agreement that we
Yeah.
presently have.
Yeah.
And of course, we can address the signature block. Right now, it has all the board members' names on it. We assumed you'd all want to sign it or stamp it, but
Yeah.
that can be modified because we'd like to get it out as soon as possible to start the 30-day time frame running.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go forward.
All right,
Thanks, Jeff.
thank you both. All right, Doug, you're up.
Morning, my the co-presenter from the city, I think, managed to get lost.
Oh, well, it's a long trek over here.
Long
Now
journey.
that the Post Street Bridge is open, they
Yeah.
probably didn't know which way to take.
you know, we might have gotten lost on the bridge, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Hope we didn't turn too soon. Well, can I ask you a question before he gets here?
Please, that would be great.
We have on the agenda for this afternoon, an adjustment to the West Terrace. Oh, this isn't your project. This is Kyle's. The stormwater drainage contract. And I didn't know what the detail was.
I can ping him and have him be ready to answer that.
Well, I don't, I just need to know before 2:00.
Yeah. He's on.
Okay.
Introduce us to your guest.
Yes.
And take it away.
Perfect timing. Thank you for the additional question. This is Michael Light with the City of Spokane Parks Department. We have a joint project that we've been working on together and have a presentation for you. You may recall about a month ago, we were here with the aviation easement for this project and mentioned at that time the design documents and construction documents. They're working through permitting, and updated cost estimates were nearly ready to go. So here we are today, and we're excited to provide you with an update on this project that will include a funding request there towards the end. And I will get us started. This is the Make Beacon Hill Public Phase 2. And back in 2020 through 2022, the Make Beacon Hill Public Phase 1 involved Spokane County coordinating with the city, taking lead, and we secured, gosh, over $1.5 million in grant funds that were used to acquire a little over 250 acres, providing that connected network that you now see up on the screen. The properties in dark green represent county ownership and or county care and maintenance. And as phase 2, riding off of the success and the momentum from that initial project, the city of Spokane then offered to step up and take a lead role in pursuing grant monies that would allow us to enhance trailheads that serve this particular area. And so the board was kind and authorized us to coordinate with the city, pursue those grants back in 2022. We were successful. The city was successful in the lead role, and they have been working on the design. And similar to our Plants Ferry and Camas Meadow project, in this example, we combined Shields Park, which is a county maintained property and partial ownership, with Camp Saconnie. And even though the two separate projects have been combined for purposes of going after the grant successfully and for maximizing the construction dollar in having that larger project that could attract more bids. And so for purposes of the presentation, you'll see how we've broken that out and combined it back together in the end. But again, just for background, there was 1,060,000 in grant funds that were secured. Next slide. And again, this is just another look at the site. Next slide. Zeroing into the project area. So as I believe I mentioned the prior land acquisitions back in 18 to 21. The recent 2022 grant, the city of Spokane, we've got a great interlocal agreement in place for John Shields Park. We will own all improvements that are made to that park through the duration of the agreement. And again, the current trailhead design and construction, the city of Spokane has taken lead on this, which has been really helpful with our project. Next slide, please. And just a quick summary to date where we were at when we again began back in 2022. There were some initial cost estimates that were prepared by the consultant. Based on those estimates, the county contributed $300,000 match towards the grant. The city of Spokane contributed $589,000 in match. We have the $1,060,000. There was another $185,000 in private donations. We'll get into that for that total budget of just over $2.1 million in that preliminary estimate. And then directly below there, you can see we have that updated estimate, which unfortunately puts us at about a $750,000 shortfall. Next slide, please. And we always love to, again, just another view of that funding, and love to share our appreciation and call attention to those donors: the John Ross Kelly Foundation, the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, Inland Northwest Adaptive, Friends of the Centennial Trail, Spokane Mountaineers, and the Boulder Climbing Coalition have all pledged funding towards this project. So you can see there really is a tremendous amount of support in the community behind the project, which is always very, very helpful when competing for those grant dollars, and will go a long ways. Next slide, please. Okay, and here we're going to transition. Mike's going to jump in and take it from here for a bit.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, so Doug mentioned I'm with the city of Spokane, so I've been at the project manager on this Make Beacon Hill Phase 2 project, I guess, from the design and permitting phase. And so this map is just kind of showing what Doug's indicated, in terms of ownership, when we're talking about maintenance and operations, daily operations out there. Camp Sakani is operated by the city, John Shields is operated by the county, but really we see it as jointly managed as one for the public. So that's kind of how we've been communicating this project, through public engagement, through permitting. I think it's helped streamline a lot of the processes. And really the public sees Beacon Hill as just one large park. So this is kind of just that slide reiterating the differences there. Next slide, please. Briefly, the project goals. So this is our latest rendering showing John H. Shields Park. Really, if you're out there today at Shields or Sakani, parking is completely maxed out. We need to increase it. So that's kind of one of the main goals there at both sites, as well as safety and security. So trying to minimize illicit activity, delineating fencing and lighting to help keep your spaces safe for folks that want to use them. If you're coming out early in the morning or coming back late at night, making sure that we have safety all around. So this is showing on the left of your screen is going to be that brand new parking lot on the west side where it's currently all dirt, and then some improvements further to the top of the screen at the existing parking lot. Next slide. So where we're at today, we're in permitting phase. So again, working with both city and county planning and building departments. We're currently in shoreline permitting, which will then transition to your building permits. We've completed some great public engagement. We've completed design development. So right now we're at that point where we're fine tuning our detailed designs. They're getting ready for construction and bidding. Depending on how permitting phases go, we are still targeting a fall 2024 start. That might get pushed out to spring, but we don't know that at this point. And then still looking at a construction completion next year, fall of 2025 for both sites. Next slide. So the project engagement has been a pretty key component here for helping us prioritize the proposed designs. So we've completed 2 open houses. The top ranked community desires are on the screen there. So of course, increased parking capacity is at the top of everybody's list. Crosswalks are a huge component to this project, so helping folks get from the parking lots across Upriver Drive. Again, if you're out there today, you'll see a lot of folks overflow parking onto the street, which shouldn't really be happening. It's super dangerous because we have on-street bike lanes there as well. So these new parking lots will help relieve a lot of that excess parking and get folks across Upriver Drive to the, I guess, from the river to the trailhead safely. Camp Sakani does not yet have any kind of permanent restroom. There's just portable toilets out there. So we'll be looking to improve that restroom up to a vault building, and then site lighting and increased security. So making sure folks of all ages and abilities can get out there safely in and out of the trailheads. Next slide. Okay, so as Doug mentioned, there's a grant with the Recreation Conservation Office, and with those grants always come certain design elements to follow through with. So these next slides will just show, first of all, John H. Shields Park and what those kind of specific requirements are. Starting with paved parking lots, so you'll see that new kind of curvy parking lot in the dark gray on the bottom left. The existing parking lot in the light gray will remain as is. We'll have a nice new paved pathway that'll actually pull folks away from Upriver Drive and safely through the sites. An adaptive trail is a really exciting component of this project. That's going to help folks with limited mobility and visual impairment actually get up to the climbing rocks. So it's not an ADA accessible pathway, but it's a route to get folks kind of safely up there. It's seen as a bit of a challenge for them, which is exciting. And there will also be a climbing and bouldering playground for kids of all ages to hang out on if you don't want to go on the big real rocks. Fencing and security lighting is mentioned, kiosk and signage for wayfinding, and then basic landscape restoration. We're not really doing a lot of new landscape here. It's all just restoring what's out there. And standard site furnishings such as benches, bike racks, and waste receptacles. So those are kind of your RCO grant elements. If you go to the next slide, our engineering and landscape architecture team has done a really good job at trying to just value engineer this project. So, cut out all the things we can that really aren't at the top of the community's desire list. However, one of the desires was a drinking fountain at John H. Shields. There is no water service out there, so we would have to really trace a water line pretty far back to your next point of connection. So what this is showing is one of our alternates in terms of when we go to bid, we're going to get pricing for this, but at this time, its price tag is $75,000 is our estimate. And so we're recommending to not proceed with the water line at this time, just due to that high cost and just making sure that we get a lot of your more basic base bid elements built. So that's going to John Shields, I guess, as a whole, just going to give you an update on where the designs are at. And then if you go to the next slide, we should have a breakdown of the costing. So as Doug mentioned, in 2022, we had some pretty high level, I guess, designs that came with some preliminary budgeting. Since then, prices go up. Our design team has done a really good job at getting more accurate estimating on recent construction projects. And so what this is showing is pretty much everything that this project will go through: soft cost, which is our current design and construction documents, your 10% contingency of construction, and your sales tax. So back in 22, we were just below $1 million. Now we're at about $1.5 million for John Shields. And so the next slide just kind of shows in orange that cost shortfall. If you jump to the next slide, that'll pop up there. So it's about a 34% increase from where we were at a couple of years ago, which equals just over $518,000 to complete John H. Shields to its kind of basic components, minus that potential water line. And then the next slide should go through Camp Sakani. Pretty much same program of elements, new paved parking lots. At both sites, we're really looking to double what's out there today. The new restroom improvements, fencing, kiosk, and lighting, landscaping. Next slide, please. That'll show you some alternates at Camp Sakani. So there could be an option to increase parking even further, which is kind of showed in a white dashed outline as number 1 on the screen. Again, we're not going to recommend proceeding with that at this time, just because we are already doubling the parking that's out there, and we need to save costs for some of the more basic elements to improve. The second alternate would be that trail crossing to Centennial Trail and a paved pathway bringing you up to the parking lot. This is a big component and desire from the community, so we will be proceeding with getting pricing for this, but we won't be recommending to build it until a separate phase in the future. Next slide. And so Camp Sakani, the costs are a little bit tighter. We're still over from our preliminary budget. So we were around $1.1 million back in 2022. And if you jump to the next slide, it'll show that kind of percentage difference. So 17% increase brought us to just over 1.3 million with a cost shortfall of $227,800. That's kind of in a nutshell where the two sites sit in terms of design. The next slide will just kind of give you that full overall look at what the additional funding need is and kind of why we're here today. And so the next slide, if you jump to that, it'll just give you that kind of total cost shortfall. So both sites all together, we were looking at 2.1 million, as we mentioned kind of on the first slide of the presentation. Now we're up to 2.8. So overall, it's a 26% increase that comes to a total of 746,269. And next slide, Doug will wrap it up kind of with where our recommendations are at.
So we are recommending or requesting that we look at allocating, the county allocate an additional 500 for John H. Shields and do so within the 2025 capital funding. Looking ahead to next year, that would bring the county's total contribution to 800,000 towards the combined project. Next slide, please. And the city of Spokane is looking to allocate an additional 250,000 that would go towards both trailheads to make up that estimated difference. And that would bring the city's total contribution to 839. And you can see individually, the contributions really dial into the individual areas, but they work collectively together within the combined project budget. Next slide, please. And that's what it looks like when we roll it all up. If we look at those total, again, the total contributions towards the project. And in doing so, if the county were to contribute that, it would ultimately leverage, if we look at that portion towards Shields Park, that 800,000 would leverage an additional $713,340, give or take, in those grant monies, the portion towards that, and in the much of those contributions from those generous agencies that we saw earlier. So there's a really good return on that investment to allow the project to happen. And if this looks like it's something positive that the board can support, our next step would be to amend that existing interlocal agreement that we have in place. The current interlocal provides for that 300 and the 589 that have been completed to date. We would bring back an updated version that would add the additional contributions. And I think there may be one more slide here. There we go. In addition to that, the city would, within that amended interlocal, we would identify, we would have our contribution to them, I think not later than like March 3rd of 2025. The city would provide any bridge funding needed to allow them to move the project forward in 2024, to try to get that out a bid, to take advantage of this year's pricing, which again could be really helpful. So we'd be locked in as we roll into 25 to help those funds go further. And that, again, the vehicle would be that interlocal agreement. It would include the additional contribution from the city towards the project. And again, we've got that in place, so we would just modify it to reflect these changes as outlined before you today. And the interlocal agreement, in fact, references, as it's currently drafted, it references our presentation today as a tool to help guide that. I've been working with Jessica Pilgrim. We're, I would say, about 2/3 of the way through that. And with any luck, we would target having that as early as July 9th for your consideration if everything comes together. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for the presentation. I know it's a really important project that you've been working on for several years. I was just talking to folks from the Minnehaha neighborhood, and they're very excited about the project and the crosswalk to really kind of create a safe place for people. It would be an activated crossing, correct?
Yeah, it'd be an activated crossing, so it'd have the RFG, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, as well as marked paintings and overhead lighting.
Have you circled back with the community stakeholders about hunting on that second crosswalk that would get you over to
Camp Sakani? Or sorry,
So yeah, so after you've looked at all these options and you've had several community meetings, and have you circled back about kind of this latest plan where you're gonna maybe push out some of the work into another phase?
we've been working pretty closely with the Friends of Centennial Trail. And so they're kind of our main group, that's been helping us, determine which ones. And so currently we know that like the main priority is at John H. Shields. And so that's kind of why we're currently looking at maybe pushing the Camp Sakani one out further. I think, once we actually get through the bidding and get the pricing and see where all those alternates sit, that's probably the time that we want to circle back with them and just check back in to make sure that our assumptions still align with them. Yeah, because those groups are also contributing money specific to those crossings.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of private groups that have put money on the table to get this project going. So I'm supportive, but where are you suggesting that funding would come from?
Perfect segue, right? That's probably the most important information.
Where do we find that $500,000?
My team has gone back, as you know, we have our 6-year capital improvement plan in place, and we've gone back and spent quite a bit of time carefully looking at our projects program for 2025. And quite frankly, we need to push several of those forward because we simply don't have the capacity to be able to complete everything that we identified. So we've looked carefully at current projects. Those projects we're looking, we've already prepared some initial adjustments to move a couple forward and phase them in more realistically. And in doing so, we've identified funding working with that amount that's currently allocated for 2025 by moving a couple projects forward that we quite frankly aren't able to get to. We've been able to identify the 500,000 within that same amount. And we've identified some additional dollars that could be helpful as we move forward with our Camas Meadow Park and potentially even a little bit there at Plants. And so we're really mindful of those several projects that we have moved further on, and we feel optimistic that with a few dollars more, we may be able to complete more comprehensively complete what we've started. And so that would be the strategy. And in going through that exercise, we feel confident that we could provide that 500 to this project, and it really will still have a full project load.
So I was right there with you until you said Camas Park. And so you're talking about taking money away from.
No. I'm talking about identifying additional money that we could add to Camas Meadow Park.
God bless you.
Work through the validation process.
Heart is slowing down. It's good.
Yeah, we really want to be able to go in while we have the expertise on board. It will never be more affordable. So we've looked carefully at those 25 projects and readjusted those, and we'll continue to finalize that as we work through the capital planning process with Randy and the budget team, looking ahead to next year. But we feel confident we'll have a few extra dollars, not only to address this need, but to feed into Camas Meadow and a little bit for Plants as well. So that's what our.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sing into my ears.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of projects going on right now. We've got two big park projects with Liberty Lake and Bear Lake. And then we've got all these ARPA funds that you've got out. For the Camas Meadow. And so we want to make sure we maximize all that work. And so pushing off a few other projects that you have in your 5-year plan makes sense. When the prices are just going to go up on all of these things.
Yes. Yeah, we're trying to be very strategic with that and very realistic in what we can get done. Yes, we'd like to do it right when we're doing it, but truly we need to move some of those forward. We just, it will really be a good fit. I think it'll be a very good fit for this project and others, and still be starting a few others in 25 so that we can be consistent.
But Plantsbury and Camas Meadow, those are moving forward.
Yes.
As planned. Okay.
Yes, and identifying again some additional funding in 25. And so we'll continue to finalize that, and you'll see that, of course, through the budget process, and we'll continue to work with Randy.
Sounds,
Primarily read $2.
Yes.
And the reality was, even if this didn't come across, Doug would still be looking at moving some projects out because they weren't timely to deliver anyhow. So there would have been some freeing up of some existing previous commitments in REIT 2.
we're not gonna start building another new park, Doug.
We have some pretty exciting projects in play and.
And a business stadium, there's a lot going on.
It's a very exciting time, and we really want to deliver for you, and we're really excited to. I think these are really going to be some significant improvements for the community that they've long been looking forward to for many, many years. And
The adaptive community that was out at the Bear Lake, groundbreaking. They're very excited about the improvements to the Shields Park.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to move forward on this and use those RCO dollars while we have them.
The city's really done a nice job with this. We've really appreciated their taking lead on phase 2. And we'll continue to work with them, and we'll be really pleased to have an updated interlocal agreement for your consideration here.
And my last thing was just to circle back, make sure to circle back with maybe the Minnehaha neighborhood in the fall and just give them an update on changes or what's going on with the bidding process and what pieces are gonna move forward and what aren't, so that everybody's in the loop.
For sure, yeah. And once we start construction, it's gonna be a big impact on which site you start with first. And so we'll be working, together with the county too on just, notices on where temporary parking might be and when construction starting. Yeah.
They want traffic calming on that stretch. And
Sure.
if there's construction going on, there will be traffic calming. People will have to go slow.
That's a good point, yeah.
Possible.
For
Yes.
sure, it definitely will. Yeah, we're excited about that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
We know, is Arian here yet, or
I'll go look at what district court is in.
All right, well, we can, if Arian's not here, we'll jump forward. Do we know? Yeah. Do we know if Arian is here though?
No, she is not.
She's not. Okay. All right, then Lonnie.
Or could do this one.
Nope.
I don't know where the rest of my act is. The rest of your act. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
So. And while we're waiting for them to set up, do you mind if I ask Kyle a question?
Go for it.
Kyle, I see you online. I just had one question about on our consent or our agenda for this afternoon on various resolutions. Item J, it says in the matter of revising resolution 2002-15, which is approved for the West Terrace Stormwater Project. How are we revising that?
Right, if you asked that question and I missed part of your sentence, could you please repeat that?
Yeah,
Yours is Jeff. It's an ARP. It's the ARP stuff that's just moving. We're moving some stuff between the general fund and in out of ARP.
So Kyle? Yeah. Never mind. Okay.
So it's just moving money, not changing the
Yes,
project.
this was
Okay.
these are the 4 or 5 resolutions that Jeff had briefed on overview last week to help us do some house cleaning. Yes, but no impact on availability of funds, use of funds, that sort of stuff.
You guys are screwing around with my heart rate. Right, I'm just saying. If I fall over,
We're purposely trying to.
someone's gonna do mouth to mouth and ain't me. Alrighty, thanks.
Okay, so whoever wants to lead off, take it away.
Okay, well, good morning. My name is Lonnie Porterelli. And I'm gonna, you guys introduce yourself if you would please, the rest of my crew here with me. For our presentation.
Judge Jennifer Fossbender, Spokane County District Court.
John Witter, Court Administrator for Spokane County District Court.
Kevin Norris, Spokane County IT.
And Lonnie Tortorelli, Probation Manager. So we've got a presentation for you today. Thank you for allowing us to come in and talk to you about this. Kind of my purpose here is twofold today. Partially, I just want to give you some information so that you have as much information as possible to make a decision about what we're proposing to you. And the second part of my purpose is to appeal to you to hopefully support us and considering a interlocal agreement. So I'd like to discuss and review what our online reporting system is. If you could switch the slide, please. We'll walk you through this. So the first thing on our agenda is what is the online reporting system? We'll talk a little bit about what it is and how the probation department utilizes it, why we need that OLR system, give you a little history on how it came to be and who utilizes it. We'll talk about the probation fund and kind of the trajectory of where that's at currently. We'll discuss IT options and get some input from the IT department in terms of what we're looking at, why we're looking at it, and how they feel about it. And we'll also have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end and just some frequently asked questions to fill in maybe some of the blanks that we potentially could miss in there in the presentation itself. Okay. So next slide, please. Oh, here we are. So just for history, the online reporting system is something that we utilize in the probation department. It was a system that was created by city probation back in 2009. The IT specialist who developed the system now has his own separate business, but he continues to contract with the city for upkeep and maintenance on the system. However, it is aging and the city recognizes that, so does the provider, and so they're going to retire it. They're going to retire the system. We share it with them currently. So county probation was invited to collaborate with them in a request for proposal. They went out seeking new providers that could give an application that would replace the online reporting system. We utilize it to transfer information back and forth between community agencies. So for instance, substance use disorder agencies, agencies that provide mental health services, domestic violence perpetrator program. So it's an exchange system where we can send out referrals, they send back information, including evaluations, monthly reports, and so forth, compliance reports. The OLR process serves, it does save significant time, money, resources, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. The new OLR system that's being proposed to you today is cloud-based, and Kevin will talk a little bit more about that in terms of what that means with IT. So next slide, please. So who uses the online reporting system? City probation uses it. It is their system, so to speak, but they share it with the county and have from day one. But it is also utilized by currently 55 other community agencies. And again, those are agencies that are engaging with us and exchanging information for various services, whether it's substance use, mental health, domestic violence, and a variety of other things. GSAC also uses that. So when we send people to victim impact panels, they transfer their information that way. The nice thing about the system is it downloads automatically into ours. So saves a lot of trees too. Next slide, please. So this sort of lays out what the web-based system looks like. It's the before and after picture. So before we had an online reporting system, the turnaround time was at least 3 to 7 days. Everything that would go out went out via mail and or fax. we would have to send it out, wait for a response, check to see whether they got it. The agency would then have to return it back. Once the OLR system was in place, the electronic system, we send out referrals, they get it immediately in their queue. So it downloads into their queue, we get a response back by the next day saying that they have gotten it. When they send us reports, it downloads into our system and automatically goes right into the district court probation system. We don't have to do any scanning. It doesn't show up on the fax machine unless they choose to do so, but everything is there. So it's available no later than 3 days after it's reported. So it's very, very convenient. So that kind of, that also sort of reflects some of the security of the personal information because it's not going through the mail. They're not having to fax it over. We're not having to, have a telephone conversation and then hope that we documented what they told us correctly. So the accuracy is better as well. Next slide. So this is our budget. Basically, this slide reflects kind of the varied view on what our budget is and how it looks. So looking at our bottom line isn't really a true reflection of what our budget is. So I thought this was very accurate in saying, is the glass half full or is it half empty? All depends on how you look at it. Next slide. So I wanted to have Judge Fossbender talk about this particular slide. It's a snapshot, kind of gives a budgetary picture of where our department is at in terms of the stats from 2018 to 2020.
And so with anybody that is sentenced and placed on probation, the judges do assess a probation fee. So let's say, for example, if they're placed on probation for 2 years, that probation fee would be $960. As you can see, the trend has gone down as to the actual fees that are collected, and that was due in part with state versus Blazina, for which we do have to take into consideration a person's financial ability to pay. So a lot of the probation fees, let's say that $960 may be completely waived. It may be reduced. Certainly there's also sliding fee scales that are taken into consideration. And so although we had fees that were ordered back in 2018 upwards of 1.5, and then additional fees that may be waived or reduced over the course of time has diminished quite a lot, as you can see. And then also with regards to the fees that are ordered, of course, everyone's put on monthly time payments for both their fines and fees. Those monthly time payments are generally about $40 per month. The $40 a month that is collected, certainly there's a monthly payment fee that's removed from that from Par Acceptance Corporation. And then from there, there's a certain percentage. First that's paid is any kind of restitution. So restitution to victims, Washington State Patrol for the cost recovery. And then from there, the next order of priority is probation. And so if someone's not paying their fees, if their fees have been reduced, probation fees that are actually coming in the door is significantly reduced based on what is actually assessed. And so as you can see from the course of time, there was a break-even point about 2020. Of course, we know that was about COVID, but since then, with the implementation of our statewide legal financial obligations calculator, bench cards, more education on the judges, the fees have been dramatically decreased. And so fees that were actually collected has dropped. Now what we have here in this last year in 2023 is approximately 819,000. And so what that does is it's going to dramatically reduce the actual probation department's funds. Over the course of time, there was a break-even point, but then it's now gone down. So the fees or the costs of the probation department severely outranks or, is going well above what is actually being collected in as far as the revenues. And so, yes, we do have a pretty robust probation fund at this point in time, But as you, over the course of time, that is gonna be increased significantly. Yes.
I would just add, this is only the revenue paid for by the people on probation. Does not include the revenue that the general fund gives to the department as well.
Yes, so the general fund does fund 4.5 full-time positions for probation department, but that's only 4.5 positions. Certainly, the probation fund itself does fund the rest of the positions.
How many is that?
The probation, 18 positions, and the county only funds 4.5 of those.
Last year, their shortfall was about $250,000. They've got 3.4 million in their fund balance.
Yeah, and that is decreasing every year as we go.
Can I ask who, so fees ordered, who sets that amount?
The judges,
And so who waives the fees?
the judges.
So why would the judges set a fee and then waive it? Why wouldn't they just set the true actual amount that you know the person can afford?
Because we have to do a financial analysis, so everybody has the same fee amount assessed. But from that point, we have to do a financial assessment on that one particular individual as to their ability to pay, their future ability to pay. So we may assess a full probation fee on someone at this point in time that may have that ability to pay. But then let's say they're laid off or lost their job, they can come back into court and ask for a reduction based on their current ability to pay.
Okay, it's a reduction, not a deference.
Correct.
Okay.
Next slide.
Okay, so Kevin's gonna take the floor now. He's been working very closely with us to kind of evaluate whether the project and taking on a new online reporting system interfaces well with the current system that we have, whether it pencils well in terms of other options, and the other options are pretty limited, but he's looked at it from the IT perspective, so I'll let him speak on that.
Yeah, this is something that the city and the county looked at doing back in 2019. Looking to go to RFP to replace their aging system at that point. Now it's 5 years later, so it's aged not gracefully even longer. Back then COVID hit and things were delayed, and this was taken back up by the city and the county last spring, summer. IT at that point was not involved outside of our specific team lead that supports district court and district court probation. I wasn't aware of any part of this RFP at that time, which is fine. At the time that the RFP was settled upon and a vendor was chosen, still at that point, we weren't aware of what was going on with this, but became aware of this at the time that the city and county got to the point of figuring out, okay, how do we pay for this and how do we share this? At that point, I was involved. It looked like a great opportunity for an interlocal agreement. Right now, we have no agreement in place, nothing in writing, telling us or dictating the terms on how the current system is used, how it's shared with the county or anything, which is a big concern. Determining the fit of the exceptionist application, that's what the application is called, is exceptionist. It's a great fit. It's a web-based application. It's completely secure. All data is encrypted at rest and while it's ingress or egress into our network or out of our network or the city's network for that matter. This system has in place CGIS information, HIPAA information, and PII information. All very critical information that should be encrypted at all times. Currently, the system that's in place now has none of that. Nothing is encrypted, nothing is truly safe. If the database was compromised, that data would all be available to anyone that has it. To me, the importance to get onto something a lot safer as quick as possible is really important. I think that we're kind of hanging out there right now in that manner. And then also there's no guarantees stepping into the next component of this. There's no guarantees that that the county will be, at any point in time, the city can say county, and they've already told us, we could send you a 60-day notice that we want you off the system. We're going to go in a different direction. At that point, it was determined that we should try to collaborate. The city wants to collaborate. We want to collaborate. We all serve the same probationers. We all use the same services. So it's really important, I think, that we look to jointly work with the city on this. One thing that in determining the funding responsibilities, that was a pretty easy thing to do, half and half. We actually gain more benefit, I believe, than the city does, in that we have more referrals and more reports that district court generates than municipal court. So from a funding standpoint, I think it's more than fair to pay for half of the obligation for this system. We looked at,
Next slide, please.
I want to talk about the interlocal agreement
okay.
real quick here. The interlocal agreement, I asked the city that since you're the lead on this, can we have an interlocal agreement that defines the terms of funding and also the terms of use for us sharing this system? I felt I was at a disadvantage, the county was in general, because we're always the lead in these ILAs, almost always the ones that I've worked with. We've been the lead agency in doing this. We received an ILA from them. We worked on it back and forth. We came to an agreement. Jessica Pilgrim stepped in and really did yeoman's work to see this through. We started with Casey. We ended up getting this done with Jessica's help, including having the vendor identify the county as being not just an affiliate, but a user of this new system if we follow through with our ILA, which was really good work on her part and gives us good standing with this ILA. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is the funding for the obligation for the city and the county. It's equal. They did have in here, they wanted to bill the county also for an administration fee and also for project management fees for each year. I got them to waive that. So the true cost to the city for this application is split 50-50 based on the application itself. First year cost for this is including implementation and first year maintenance, $76,525. And then each year after that, years 2 through 5, is a total of $51,755. That's both city and county are obligated to pay that much money for a total over a 5-year period for each agency of $283,625. So year one is the biggest, about 50% bigger than the remaining years, but that includes the implementation of the application as well. Next slide.
Next, okay, there we go. So in summary, the tool itself, the online reporting tool, is so important to our department. It really, I mean, I have great staff and they do great work and they have huge caseloads. They're trying to oversee, monitor, and supervise over 200 people per caseload. And this tool is huge in terms of information gathering and exchange with agencies in the community. I don't know what we would do without it. So we really need the OLR. Why do we have to do it now? Because the city's going to get rid of it. The city's going to get rid of the current system and we will have nothing. We will have to go back to snail mail and faxes and phone calls because it's going to go away. We will not have a choice. And there isn't, I also, looked at other options. Was there options out there for us to do something on our own? Was that any more cost effective? No, quite frankly, it cost us more to go that direction. So collaborating now is definitely a cost savings. How much do we use it? Last year, we sent out over 3,500 referrals and we received back over 11,000 pieces of information and documents from outside agencies for our folks. I mean, if we had to do something with that, again, snail mail or fax, we literally would have to hire another position to do that, maybe 2. But worst case scenario or best case scenario, I guess, would be hiring one position. So I thought, okay, well, how much is that? Let's see, financially, what does that look like? Well, if we brought somebody on in the lowest level administrative position we could possibly do, if we add on benefits and compensation, we're looking at $69,000 a year.
You're also looking at someone doing the work in an unsafe manner, meaning that
Yes.
none of the data is encrypted that comes through snail mail, potentially through email, unless it's indicated to be encrypted. So you're really, it's not just the fact that you have a person doing this extra work, it's the safety of the data that's part of the work being done.
And in terms of collaboration, I mean, collaborating with the city is a great thing. We share space with them. We share office space with them. We share clients with them. They have the same probationers we do. There's lots of overlap. We work together in many ways on a daily basis. It just makes sense that we would also share this with them because they're not in a great position if we don't collaborate either. So in terms of, keeping that relationship good and solid, this makes good business sense all the way around. So, in summary, what we're asking is for your approval to proceed forward with an interlocal agency to collaborate with the city to replace our aging online reporting system. Last slide. And thank you for giving us the time and listening to our request and taking it into consideration. And we're hoping we can move forward. There was a little thank you on the bottom of there that I just wanted to get out. One of my staff members actually helped put together the PowerPoint presentation, and she is a whiz with this stuff. So I said, I'm gonna make sure you get your credit that's due. That would be Malia Cross. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I thank you for all the work you put into the presentation and for Malia's help. So I think that you make a good case for, getting the software. It makes a lot of sense and we split it with the city, so it makes sense. So getting back to your original slides where you're talking about the fees going down over time. So what does this look like budget wise?
Right now, I would say that fund, it's a special revenue fund. It probably has about 10 years of fund balance before we would run into some potential problems.
So,
But I think
but is
that-
that,
that'll
this
make
isn't
it
the
even
only,
worse.
this isn't the only thing we pay out of that fund.
And people.
Right.
But this would be worse. It would be worse not to get this software because
Right.
just have a person or two people would be more than the cost of the software. We will need to
And then the
do
constant
something
training and changing.
long-term down the road. But right now you have enough in this.
There is.
Short-term for next decade, but then you are gonna have to do something in that area.
Well, and to tailor off on that as well, I mean, certainly over the course of time, what's projected is potentially 10 years left in that account. But the fees are going down every day. And that fund does not only pay for staff members, both salary and, benefits, but other items as well, the county overhead, the cost of IT department, office supplies, the computers or laptops, everything that the probation department pays for comes out of that fund. So it's just not salaries and benefits, it's everything. It's the bill that they get from the county for being housed in that particular area in the public safety building. So eventually, I mean, the statute does require the county, the general fund to pay for the probation department. Certainly paying for this new system out of that fund is gonna decrease that amount, but it's gonna be decreasing over the course of time anyways. So certainly as far as the county taking into consideration that at some point, they're gonna have, the general fund's gonna have to take care of not just 4.5 positions, potentially
Maybe more, yeah.
more than that. And taking this chunk out right now is gonna decrease that amount significantly. Well, I mean, compared to 3.5, maybe not significantly, but you can see where I'm going with that argument.
What the state is doing to us is killing us. With the caseload standards coming down for public defenders, that's gonna triple our cost. So there's probably another 6 million. Right, match that with the prosecutor's office, and they'll have to increase staff to deal with that. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 million. Clerk's office, probably another 1,900,000. Superior Court judges, another million. And they all, the legislators all expected us to pull that out of our general fund.
The unfunded mandates.
Oh, God,
And we're
Lord.
looking at, with the public defender's office specifically too, right now, they're working off a 42% continuance rate on their caseloads. So the public defenders, not only are they already overworked as far as cases, I mean, the caseload standards, that's gonna start going into effect here in 2025, and then it's going up from there in 2026. So the current caseload right now of public defender, you're not gonna be able to sustain that without hiring additional individuals. And of course, with the caseloads going up as well, we're short-staffed as far as the probation department goes. They're already working well over their caseload standards as we speak.
Yeah. So all I see is a train wreck ahead.
They're getting ahead of it to prevent as much damage as possible.
Okay,
I think it's a good choice to invest in the system. It'll save us money over time, and I guess we'll have to keep circling back to how to fix the funding issue longer term.
So yes, I think we certainly support the software, the other issues, we'll have to be saved for another day.
Yes, sir. Well, maybe.
Excellent, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
All right, Arian. It's always nice to see you
Always nice to be
back
here.
back in our conference room, so
Back in the saddle, yeah, thank you.
take it away.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, commissioners. I wanted to share briefly with you an overview of a policy adopted by the Broadlink Board that they have requested come before the commissioners to be reviewed and adopted as policy countywide. Scott is a board member. I'm not sure. I don't know if Kyle's here, but I can give a little bit of overview of the policy, and then if you'd like to share as far as the board's determination. Oh, hi Kyle. Hi Kyle. Kyle's there. Kyle is also a board member. So in your packet, you received what is called an open access resolution. And this is a key term in the space of public benefit broadband that has been codified both at the state and federal level, but has yet to be defined. So in a lot of mechanisms, it's an opportunity. Many of the upcoming funding sources, in particular the BEAD funding source that I've talked with you a few times that we're expecting anywhere between 70 and $100 million coming to connect people, will need to follow open access. And right now, it's left to the determination of those involved. That just makes for some confusion. It makes for, I think, sometimes not a level playing field. And so Broadlink has done a lot of due diligence in putting together our definition of open access for public benefit networks, both fiber optic cable as well as wireless, that we will be using as we sit down with now the over a dozen ISPs that would like to participate in what this funding will bring to Spokane County. That doesn't limit what those ISPs can do, but it just sets some things in definition as a starting point so that we can all be on the same page. In particular, it defines public benefit as what it means as far as connecting households, businesses, and anchor institutions. And it also makes sure that open access does start at the baseline of the concept of what's called non-exclusive providers. And what that means is if fiber optic cable or wireless infrastructure is built, that means it cannot be the monopoly of just one ISP, that it is built to make sure that it is affordable, competitive, and sustainable, and made available to any ISP that has the qualifications to do so. So that is the essence of this document that we feel would be beneficial to have countywide, because all of our projects are countywide going forward. Scott?
I think you covered it. Maybe just share with the commissioners, the intent behind this is open access resolution. How do you see Broadlink it forming at the state level?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of eyes on this document. It's already been sent to the Washington Association of Counties. I believe 6 or 7 other counties are entertaining this document. The Washington State Broadband Office is also reviewing this document. Again, they have the ability to adopt some of these definitions at the state level. And because none existed, this is kind of being used as the standard. And again, this all has the potential of going up to the federal headwaters to just help create a common playing field so that everybody knows what these words mean, so that it can be used, so that it doesn't inadvertently become a potato situation going forward. So that's really the use of this, and we're really excited that we were able to put it together, and then other folks are really interested in adopting this as well. And the more common language we have, the better we all stand as things go forward.
Any questions? I know we talked about this policy for quite a while, benefits of it, so sort of the next step, so.
So is it on upcoming consent, or is it still going to be prepared? I wasn't sure as far as the board goes.
The board's good that they'll go on next consent agenda.
Should be the ninth.
Okay.
Thanks for all your work on, I know it's been a lot of work.
It has been a lot of work, but we're starting to see some really fruitful efforts. We had a successful showcase. Thank you, Commissioner, for attending. And I think a lot of seeds of hope that we actually can do this are coming up. So thank you all for your support. All right.
You have your calendar, 9 o'clock Thursday morning for Jay. They've asked me to come out and speak with them.
Didn't. They will be with us in the afternoon, but I'd be happy to be there in the morning. Oh.
So, because they asked me to come out, and talk to them, and so I'm coming out, talking to them, but I don't know exactly what about.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll
Thank
check
you.
in with Victoria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that brings us back to miscellaneous. Anybody else got anything for the good of the order?
I've got it. I got an executive session item that I want to bring to the board. It'll only take about 5-10 minutes.
Okay. We'll start with Martha Lou, and then we'll go into your executive session.
Good morning. All right, so the decision about allowing cops to do some filming here in Spokane County, huge media coverage. Good heavens.
Everybody loves the show.
Everybody loves the show.
Seem to be
Like a good
interested in
takedown.
that. Also some coverage on the fact that the county is beginning the budget planning process. It coincides with the fact that the city council last night decided to go with a biennial budget. And we're waiting on an article in the Spokesman about jail capacity. So Pat had briefed me about that yesterday. Now, as far as news releases, the auditor's office requested that the reminder about boat registrations be sent again, and so that was done yesterday. We have a news release on how fireworks are illegal in Spokane County going out later this week, also the 4th of July closures. And we're waiting. We have a news release. We're just waiting for the particulars on a burn ban. So No proclamations for the month of July that I have heard of thus far.
So we don't have the burn ban in place yet?
No. I keep checking with them. There was
All
Yeah,
this wind and
I'm
stuff.
surprised because
Yeah.
it's the,
We
it's
can
the,
get it before next
it's the-
weekend.
it's the fire marshals like at the individual district, but they usually do it together.
They all collaborate together.
It seems odd they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, especially since we've already had a couple wildfires already.
Well,
I've been checking with them. They're having conversations. I think it's the level of dryness of the fuels that are out there right now. They might be waiting for later this week, but I agree, Commissioner French, it's of a concern considering you know, campfires, barbecues,
Oh,
fireworks, all
absolutely.
kinds of things going on next week. But it's not our decision. It's up to fire marshals. So
I don't see any rain anytime soon in the forecast.
we
so.
do have a red flag warning in effect. Intermittent rain showers are expected over the next couple of days, but it's hit or
Thursday,
miss.
Friday.
But the communications office does have one waiting. We're just. It's there, we're ready to go. We need to be told when.
we're told
That's
it's
all.
imminent. It's just a combination, I think, of the fuel loading, or the fuel dryness, humidity levels.
So they're
temperatures.
waiting for it to dry out more.
I
Essentially,
don't know
yes.
what their science is.
It seems that way.
The humidity level.
Yeah.
So I just add kudos to Martha Lou and Jessica on our team. We got great coverage on the broadband event down in South County. I think we had 3 different pieces of coverage, and I know that's gotten the attention. I know Arian had to leave, but gotten the attention of some others around the state about what Spokane County's doing to kind of bridge the gap with this new technology. So that's been great. We also are looking forward to some proactive opportunities on the Crisis Relief Center and staying in touch with Mike and his team about when the opportunity is to communicate that. I'd raised this before and just called the board's attention to it. Happy to plug in with Justin, but as the co-deployed teams begin to get implemented and there's some opportunities to get commissioners out to see some of that, I think that would be a good thing to highlight that investment. So again, looking back at some of the opioid funds and how those are being used. But open to any other opportunities, as Martha Lou and I talk about, feel free to notice these opportunities too. We do a pretty comprehensive scan through the news, what's being talked about. Obviously hearing all the meetings and hearing all the same stuff you're hearing. But anytime you see an opportunity or you think we should be getting out there on something, we're always open to your feedback and ideas. Want to be helpful and get the county the coverage it deserves.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that when Justin, when he brings forth any of the funding, the opioid settlement funding, I know the RFPs were gonna close in the last week or something like that. So like those dollars plus the co-deployed teams, plus the Senator Murray and Cantwell moving forward in the queue, the funding for the expansion, like all those things could really play well into a comprehensive look at all the things that we are doing to invest in mental health and substance treatment, public safety. So anyway, you're on the same page, it sounds like.
Yep, and I know one question we're anticipating from the media, and this is something probably for the project team and for the commissioners to consider a little bit. We don't have to decide anything today, but it's just as the regional government and entity, how are we collaborating with all the stakeholders, the city partners, the service providers? Because I think that will come up, knowing that others have funds and are using them for other pieces of the system, just that holistic look. So that we're maximizing the funding. That's something Martha Lou brought up yesterday. I think just with that journalist lens on it, is the right hand talking to the left hand, those kind of things. So as we're able to highlight the story, I think that's an important piece of it, is having some third-party voices in there talking about the impact our funding is making, but how it's coordinated with other efforts and the community with opioid dollars. Because the county is receiving significant funding, but so are a lot of these other jurisdictions.
And there was a good article too on the Broadway senior affordable housing project that SNAP, that we put funds into it. I think there's even an earmark going on with Murray's office.
Yeah,
Anyway, that was good.
Pavel-
That was a good little article too.
Pavel and Scott had highlighted that. We made sure the county was included as a funder. So any opportunities you see, it's even after an article's been published, we can oftentimes get updates on one of the cop stories. There was some misattribution issue with your quote and.
I noticed
Commissioner
that.
Cuny,
It's like,
so-
I think I said that, not Commissioner Cuny, but
So we called the news director, got that fixed. But we know obviously the media is interested in the meetings. We know that we've got a full-time newspaper reporter who's following our meetings, probably listening to us now. He did have a very good tour, by the way. That's been long in the works. Mike took him on a very thorough tour. Mike set for a 30-minute interview, just going over capacity. And yes, Nikki and Emma Epperly, the public safety reporter, crime reporter, both got a up close look. And so I think that's always helpful when we can showcase what we're doing. And I know there's a couple other opportunities we can talk about offline, but KSPS, Commissioner Kearns has his, he's taping early, and we just had the other one, which I think was successful as well. And so that's available online. That was Commissioner Jordan and Senator Billick, who's departing the legislature, and just talking about his leadership and legacy and some insights that he's gained from serving in that capacity. So those are the next ones, and we'll get with the August spotlight soon, but heading into the late summer and early fall, the communications team will be very busy preparing for the state of the county. So we have been talking to a number of the individual departments where there's an opportunity to spotlight some of their work, pull out some of their data, and show the customer service story that we have to tell here about all the various ways that we serve the public. So I know I'd sent around an email, and I know for any independent electeds who are listening, I know Chair Cuny's interested in spotlighting things. So if people want to ante up into the pot, we have a outline in the speech, and we're going to be getting drafting and working on the multimedia presentation to go with it. So photos, video clips, other things that you would like her to consider, you can filter those to us or to Brenda.
Anything else before the executive session? Okay, Commissioner Brent, do you want to state the purpose and who you'd like in?
Yep.
Oh, what's that? We've got two related to Kyle's department. We'll do this after the public commissioners are present.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So executive session for purposes of discussing potential purchase or lease of real estate. And no decision to be made. And it would include the county commissioners, CEO and legal counsel. And let's throw in Randy Bischoff just for fun.
How long?
10 minutes at the
10 minutes,
max.
okay. Well, we'll be going into executive session then at 11 o'clock. We will be in for 10 minutes, and as stated, no decisions will be made. At the conclusion of the executive session, we will adjourn our morning meeting, and we will reconvene at 2 o'clock this afternoon for our consent agenda.